Okay, cool. Chris, super excited to have you today. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of how you got started as an entrepreneur, and then sort of what you work your way up to what you're doing now.
Yeah. Do you want me to go way back? I can go way back.
Heck yeah, man! Give us the full series.
Yeah, I'll go way back. About 14 or 15 years ago, I was looking at a website on like the Nintendo GameCube or something like that, and I saw a little thing at the bottom that said ads by Google, and I was like, oh, that's odd. I wonder what that is. AdSense, of course. But it was so long ago, I wasn't familiar with the platform. And I talked to the owner, and I said, well, I just said like, hey, how much are you making from this site? And he told me it was like $1 a day or something. I was like, well, shoot, it's still $1 a day. I mean, I'd like to know, I'd like to have some sites that I can build out that are, making me some money. And if I figure I can get more traffic, then that's how I can make more money. And so it's just like a very rudimentary understanding. There was no one really talking about or blogging about building online businesses at the time, or at least that I could find. And so that was kind of the initial exposure to the space. And then I went about building out content websites to make money from AdSense to start. First started with forums in the video game space, and got to maybe about $1,000 a month or so in my peak with those types of sites. And then eventually moved into affiliate marketing, and specifically focusing on Amazon's affiliate marketing platform. And that was what allowed me to surpass my day job income at the time back in 2009 or 2010. I forget the year now. And then pretty much after that time, it was just kind of doing a variety of different things. I think that I had my first kind of meaningful exit back in 2010, selling one of my larger affiliate sites. It was a 6-figure deal. And I used some of that cash to go out and do software and everything. And that's kind of like just a really preliminary background. And then since then, I've done SaaS, e-commerce, buying and selling online businesses and things like that.
Nice. What was your life situation when you were getting started? Like, how old were you? Were you college, in the workforce? What was that?
Yeah, when I was first getting started, I was just in college. And my goal initially was to try and pay like the rent for the room in the house that I was renting, along with 5 friends. And it took a while to get there, but I eventually did. And, people were giving me a hard time, like, why are you trying to work on this website stuff instead of like, any other thing you could be doing, I guess. But I was like, well, I mean, this is like a path, I think, that to be able to, build an online business and be able to do this full time. And I spent years doing stuff like that, just kind of trying to figure it out. And it wasn't until I was into like an actual real job that the affiliate websites with Amazon affiliate marketing allowed me to quit. I mean, I got fired, but the same thing, I guess. I was able to not have to do that anymore. But yeah, it was a long time. I mean, it took me a lot longer. I certainly like to think now that, given my experience, I could do it more quickly, but just didn't really know what I was doing. Just constantly just trying to figure out various things that could make money, and not really looking in the right places until later.
Yeah, talking about looking for different things that make money. Did you try like several different business models, or did you go heavy on content sites and then just like get it in one?
I mean, I really focused on forums. Like I did one forum that was called gamingvids.com with a Z. And it was just people that were posting like montages and like clips of various like Halo and things like that.
Were you a Halo player?
Yeah,
dude,
I used to play. I used to play in tournaments and things like that.
You're kidding.
And I didn't. I think the best way to put it with my skill would be that I was close to the people that were sponsored, but not quite good enough, I guess.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But my brother gives me a hard time. He's like, dude, if Twitch was around when you were in college, you probably would just be a streamer full time and doing that, because that's the type of thing I would have got into, is being more on the tech side of things, wanting to do things like that when they first kind of come out.
Yeah, but, and anyways. If I interrupt you for a second, now that you're doing pretty well for yourself, like you said, you had a 6-figure exit. Do you still play video games like Halo? Like that's how I can kind of escape a little bit. Like open up my laptop, open up Steam, and then I've got an hour. Like I mean, do something stupid.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely still game. I play mainly on the Xbox because I figure I spend most of the day on the computer. I don't really want to be on the computer anymore.
Yeah.
And so for me, though, it's mostly socializing because I've been working from home now for over a decade. And most of my friends are just in various places primarily throughout Washington State where I'm based. But it's just harder to be able to interact with people. And so getting on and just playing some Call of Duty or Halo or whatever it might be is like the way that I can kind of get my social time in. But yeah, definitely still a game.
We'll trade gamer tags after this. So.
Sounds good.
But yeah, you were saying, so you got to start on forums, particularly sounds like video game forums in particular. And then Did you do other things as well that didn't work out, or did you go all in on that?
Definitely. I mean, you could even view those as not necessarily working out. I mean, in the sense that, I think at the heyday, like the peak of the page views for that site, it was maybe like 500,000 page views a month. I forget, but it's quite a bit of traffic. But even then it was only like $1,000 a month or less. So, that's when I, going into the Amazon side of things, I was like, okay, well, if I can just focus on something that the traffic is higher quality, then maybe I can make more money. Like it's, for people that are watching this that are familiar with all my business, it's obvious. But for me, it was like, again, there wasn't really a lot of many resources out there. So yeah, that's why I focus on that. I was like, okay, if I can build out product review websites, then the people that are searching for those products are more likely to buy. And then of course I can get a commission on that. And that's really what helped me to like accelerate the income and finally find something that was sustainable and kind of build out that path. Mm-hmm. And then since then, it was just kind of jumping from strategy to strategy. Pretty much every like major online business model I've had some experience with and some success with. And then the success is varied in different degrees, I guess.
Not trying to date you, but what resources were around when you were getting started?
Yeah. I mean, there really wasn't, I had started a podcast back in 2011 or so. And in hindsight, I should have probably stuck with that
You were for sure on the forefront. Yeah, you'd be Joe Rogan now.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that was after I'd had enough success, success being, a relative word, I suppose. Everyone has like a different idea about what that means. For me, it was just being able to kind of do my own thing and make more than I was making at my day job. And then be able to save as much as I can after that. But I mean, I pretty much was that's why I started a blog, is there weren't that many around. I know Pat Flynn was around about the same time. We met up at Blog World back in 2010, like when that still was a conference that existed. But yeah, it's there wasn't a ton of information at the time. It was just very much like you kind of got to figure things out, or at least I didn't know the best places to look. Mm-hmm. But that's the great thing for people that are listening, is there's a lot more resources now to get started. You can get started and be much more successful more quickly. I look at people that start e-commerce businesses on Amazon, for instance, and they can be up and selling at like $1 million in revenue in like 12 months or something, right? If they're really
relatively no time,
So yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So you were really on the forefront of a lot of things. And so you were doing it back in kind of like the Wild West days when you could really get away with like PBNs and probably like overdoing anchor text and stuff like that.
I mean, it's funny that, I mean, I don't even feel like I'm that old. I'm in my 30s, but I guess I started relatively young, in my 20s.
But you just look 29. So.
But I mean, like the PBNs weren't really even around in the beginning. I was mainly doing like exact match keyword domain names, and then getting the SEO boosts that I'd seen then. Like it's kind of funny. I went to a conference. It's called Elite Retreat. It was like a $5,000 ticket put on by Jeremy Shoemaker, Shoe Money, who's a big kind of affiliate, and I think is still kind of active in the space. But I went to that event, and then 2 weeks later, I think it was actually the week later, I got back, and that's when I got let go from my job. Mm-hmm. But I paid, like a huge chunk of my earnings from these sites to go out there. And that's, I learned quite a bit from some of those people. I got to talk with like Neil Patel. I met one of the guys that went on to start Tinder, and it's just a bunch of other
what a connection to have.
Yeah. I mean, No, it's funny because I could say like I met these people, but there's nothing really that came from those conversations of huge meaningful value. There's a few people that I still stay in contact with, and those actually did result in like good conversations, and relationships. But yeah.
Gotcha. Cool, man. That's really sweet. So kind of explain the timeline to me. So in college, you get started in online business, and then you go into the workforce, and then you continue working on your online business, or what are you doing there?
Yeah. So I pretty much was in college, just getting my degree, working on the forums and things like that. After I got out of college, I went to work at Microsoft for about a year as a game tester.
It's a dream job for Halo Pro.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually I worked on Halo 2 for Windows Vista.
You're kidding.
And then Age of Empires 3, The Asian Dynasties was an expansion pack for Age of Empires.
I still play that with my dad. My dad and brother, actually.
Funny. I mean, I've got my name in the credits for the Age of Empires game, but they didn't put any of the testers in the credits for the Windows Vista Halo 2 game, which is disappointing, but but yeah, so I did that, and all along the way it was just like trying to do websites on the side. I get home and I'd be like, what, I'm not really worried about TV. I'm trying to just figure out a way to kind of do my own thing, and that was kind of the path. I never took on any outside funding for any of the businesses that I built. Everything was just kind of revenue generation and then kind of reinvesting and continuing to do that. But that's kind of the high level timeline. It was just, I only lasted, I guess 2 or 3 years in like a traditional workforce before I was out. I think it was, 2 or 3 years. And then it was just content websites. I did some WordPress plugins. I did, e-commerce, SaaS business, and then, everything in between pretty much. So
nice. Sweet, man. Cool. So you mentioned you went to work and then you come home and you just worked on your businesses. I think there are a lot of people who are listening who are in that position where they're not full-time on their businesses yet. And I think it is easy to be distracted by kind of all the things that are pulling at our attention, especially today. Like it's so easy just to pull out a cell phone and then all of a sudden it's 30 minutes later and like you've really progressed on Instagram, but you've just lost that part of your day. So do you have any like productivity tips or what things allowed you to kind of work on your day job and then come home and then still get stuff done with your business?
I think the biggest thing is that, you have to, I really think it's just more of like actually wanting it a lot. If it's easy to, be like, oh, I listened to a podcast or I did something, but if you're not really taking actionable steps that lead towards, at least getting initial revenue or driving additional revenue for your business, if you already have one up on a consistent basis, then you're not going to really be able to be successful with it long term. And I think that the thing is with online businesses, the barrier to entry is so low. Like, I'm going to start a WordPress blog. Okay, it's $9 for the domain name and $80 or something, or $100 for the hosting for a year. It's easy to say you're going to do it and then just give up pretty quickly because, it's just really low. Whereas if you were buying like a franchise at Subway or something, it's going to cost you like $100,000 or something. And then you've got to pay for, everything else. So you're much more committed to the success of that. But really, I do think it's just, I don't have necessarily productivity tips. Just for me, it was very much like I wanted to do my own thing and have like much more freedom over my schedule. And I also wanted to make more money. And so the only path that I felt like would make sense for that is to just figure out some way to build something that I could do that with. And then I'm relatively risk averse, but it was just like, okay, I'm going to try and live within my means and just really focus on trying to, make more money, try new things, and just really try and make sure that I'm always staying on top of things that change. And for me, constantly looking at what was out there and just different changes in the market allowed me to kind of see different trends and really get onto those early and ride those well, and then make a lot of money doing it. But yeah, I think it just really comes back to having to want it a lot. And I think the one thing I'd say is that it's much easier when you're younger, like in your 20s, before you have kids or things like that. to be able to get to the point where you can replace your day job income. It just gets much harder when you get older and you get married, you have kids or anything else like that. Your bills start to get more to be larger and it's more challenging. So my advice is always to, if you can do it younger, it's much better, right? Because then also the wealth that you build along the way can compound and do really well too. So that's the other side of it is, being able to extract as much value out from your business and take that cash flow and invest into other things is another great way to kind of help build wealth and make it so you don't have to work as much. So
at what point do you think entrepreneurs should start investing in their businesses? So you talked about living within your means. Like, were you putting money in your businesses or was it just sweat equity?
That's the thing is that for me, it was very much like sweat equity. The first site I sold, I was the writer doing all the writing for the site. Now it's like, it's hard for me to even contemplate trying to write an article for myself. I don't want to do that anymore. Because I've seen, if you can hire people to do it, just how much better it is to do that if you can make it work. But there's also people that they only do their own writing and they can do fantastically well. I know many people that do that. But yeah, I really didn't start invest. I mean, most of my investing, I'd say, was just kind of sweat equity. And then, I did hire someone to do a WordPress plugin. I paid like a developer to do that. And then it wasn't until a few years after that I actually hired a full-time employee and I had some contract employees and things like that. But that was always kind of as the business was going along and I was taking revenue out and using it to pay that. So I think that is probably the more risk averse method, I guess, because you can't grow as quickly if you're just relying on, the revenue to help do it. But that's kind of how it worked for me, at least. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think one thing so I work with a lot of, say, beginner entrepreneurs who are just getting into online business. And I think one mistake that a lot of people make is that they invest in stuff that they haven't proven works yet. So, for instance, there's the idea that if you just drop, X dollars on a business, then all of a sudden it's going to work out for you. And I don't think that's true on the buy side. Like, I think you have to do your due diligence and then, know how to actually run the business. But I think that's even less true on the start side. Like, startups already have an enormous failure rate. And if your entire goal is just throw dollars at a problem and you're not sure what you're doing, that's pretty dangerous.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I think that if you're, it's just you got to find something that works, and then once you find something that's working, then you can really start to pour more cash into it. Mm-hmm. And every business model is different. If it's e-commerce, then you're going to have to put some cash out to be able to get your initial inventory. But if it's just a content website or something, then it's just you writing or writers if you want to do it that way. I think it's just kind of goes based on whatever fits. Your own personal financial situation as well. Like for me, I wasn't making enough money at my day job to really think about, hey, let me just hire someone to help write content. It was just like, okay, well, I'm not making enough money to really focus on reinvesting that much. And so I was just doing it myself that way. So yeah.
Gotcha. So even if you get included on the credits of Age of Empires, you might not make enough to hire out. So
I'd say that during those days, I found a pay stub. I think it was like, I don't know, $420 a week or something like that. Maybe it was more than that. I don't know. It was not very much. Like it was very low pay. And I remember distinctly, I live in Washington State, and so Microsoft has like a huge campus, multiple campuses, but the one I was at, we were working in a building, and then we got to go spend 1 week over in Kirkland, I think is where it was. And we got to test Halo 3 before it came out. And so we were at Bungie's like headquarters, and we were up there playing in the loft area, and we were playing, and like everyone's like excited because it was a new game coming out, but we were playing it well ahead of time. And then like I went and sat at lunch and talked with one of the employees there, and I said, well, like how many full-time testers do you have at Bungie? And he said, oh, just one, me. I'm just the test manager. I help manage all the test people. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm not an artist and I'm not a programmer, there's really only one spot for me at this company that this guy has already. And then it was at that time after, you go your 1 year contract, then Microsoft wants to lay you off so that you're contract employee. So they can, make sure they don't have to pay you like all the benefits and things. I did my 1 year. And then after I got let go from Microsoft, that's when I was like, okay, this isn't going to work. I got to get like a job that's using my marketing degree. And that's why I went into sales and doing that instead. But anyways, random story. I worked at, it was an IT sales type company. I was doing inside sales for just companies on the West Coast, basically for computers and things like that.
Gotcha.
Software.
And this was the last company you worked at before you went full-time in your online business?
Yeah. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's about 10 years ago or 11 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
That I last kind of had a regular, like traditional job.
Nice, man. How does that feel? Would you ever go back? Would you ever consider it?
It's tough to say. I mean, I even like right now, I technically have, it's not even really a job. I mean, I help with people selling their online businesses and I help it kind of advise in that capacity. But it's kind of done as however much I want to do it. And I can still work on my other stuff as well. So in some sense I have come back to something, but, I don't know if I could go back to traditional employment unless it were something like a company that I founded or was really early and thought that I was really excited about the project or something. But yeah,
gotcha.
Probably not.
Yeah. Okay. So let's chat about your online businesses a bit. So you said you've done a little bit of everything. So like content sites, e-com, you mentioned SaaS, and then was there anything else or does that pretty well cover?
Did WordPress plugins as well.
Yeah. Okay.
That's kind of the high level overview of the different niches I've gone into, at least, or the business models rather.
And which one of those are you still operating now, or do you still have? That's a better question.
Yeah, so salesbacker.com is the SaaS business that I co-founded back in 2015, I believe. And I actually found my business partner on that business he heard me on a podcast, and then we stayed in touch over about a year process on just different ideas. And I came back to him and said, hey, I think this is an idea that something we can build. And we can target Amazon sellers. So SalesBacker helps automate the email follow-up for people that sell products on Amazon, so you can ask for product reviews. And so that's a SaaS business that I helped co-found and build up, and it's done well. And then in addition to that, I have a portfolio of content websites. And then in that space, I've always finding stuff that I can buy and sell. I bought 2 or 3 sites in the last 2 or 3. Yeah. If I'm thinking of the last 12-month period, it's about 2 or 3 sites. I can't remember if the other one falls into the 12-month period or not, but I just bought a site 6 months ago. And so that's one that's kind of in the portfolio, monetized with advertising primarily. And I'll look for things like that to buy and add to my portfolio, and then I'll also sell things off. So I bought a site through Quietlight actually before I joined on the team. And then I bought that one for about $80K or so, and I sold it for $250. And so I'll still do deals like that when I can find like a path I think that I can do to improve it. But I don't take on too many because I've already feel like I got enough of stuff on my plate. I still don't have like this one singular business that is something that I could devote every waking hour to. And right now I'm just kind of happy with what I've got and continuing to do that. So
that's interesting that you don't have that kind of one business. So, I mean, I've never taken a survey, but I feel like of the people who are successful, like probably, 70 to 80% of their time just really goes to one endeavor. I can think of a few exceptions. So John Gillum, who I work with, he's got a portfolio bigger than Texas. Like, oh my gosh, you have too many things on your plate. What's kind of motivated you to not narrow down and then to keep a pretty diverse portfolio? Like, there's a lot of difference between SaaS and content sites, Yeah,
and I actually didn't really touch on e-commerce as well. I think the biggest thing is just that I guess for me, it's like I never found like one thing that I felt like could be just that one thing I want to work on. And also I would get like ADD in a sense where it's like, okay, well, I haven't done a SaaS business before, and they can be profitable, and here's like an idea. And I'm happy to say like the first SaaS business I ever tried has been, pretty successful. But it's really more of like just kind of looking at things that are coming up that are interesting and then trying to go into those spaces. I feel like I'm pretty good at like ground up creation and decent at buying stuff that I can improve. But yeah, I guess it's just kind of a matter of like, since I've done so many different models over the years, I haven't really narrowly focused in on one, because if I can make money with each, then and I find opportunities to do it, then I'll do that. So that's kind of the reason, I guess.
Gotcha. Yeah, you mentioned SaaS being interesting. SaaS is pretty fun. So I'm involved in a SaaS project right now called SiteBuddy, which monitors sites and lets people know if they're losing out money, particularly affiliates. And we use bare metrics. We have open metrics where people can track our earnings. And like, it's fun, right? Like you look at the monthly recurring revenue, the MRR, you're like, hey, like I'm going to make X dollars this month. If I quit, I'm going to make X dollars this month. And it's like, man, that's pretty fun. That's interesting though, that you say like, nothing's really appealed to you. So of the different types of businesses that you have worked in, which one has been your favorite, and then which one's been your least favorite, and why?
That's tough. I've really enjoyed SaaS. I think it's just more of, I think SaaS is probably the most enjoyable, just because, if you get a nice product you can build out and you've got a good marketing strategy, then, it's really just a matter of trying to get more users and solve the problems that you have with SaaS, whether it's trying to reduce your churn, get your pricing right, make sure you're developing the product well and things like that. And those problems are fun to solve.
Every listener is like, man, these guys are devoted to SaaS. I'm going to go start a SaaS business. So congrats, guys. We just opened up a bunch of competitors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one you mentioned earlier, it's funny you mentioned that site. I actually had an idea for something similar to that.
Well, don't start it now.
When I saw the email from John, and I was like, okay, well, I know John pretty well. And there already are some competitors in the space. And I was like, okay, I think that's probably an idea I can just leave off the list. But I always have like a kind of running list of ideas that I could go into. So
you can be an affiliate, but yeah, use it. I can get your copy.
Yeah, I mean, being an affiliate is fine. Yeah, I make I don't know, $1,000 a month or something like that, or maybe more from ClickFunnels and things like that. And there's little revenue streams like that are nice. But for me, at this point, I think it's once you get to a certain point of wealth and just building up like revenue streams, it starts to be like, okay, well, the only thing that makes sense to do it if you want is to try and do something that will like take you to like a much bigger level, or just be like a much larger challenge or something. Right. So like for me, that'd be like, okay, I'd like to build like an 8-figure SaaS business or something and build out a larger team, or I don't know, something that's like a new challenge. And I don't know, that's kind of what I think of. But if I were to go back to your original question with which one's the hardest, it's tough to say. I feel like they're not necessarily, there's just different challenges, right? So with e-commerce, it's like you're always constantly dealing with like inventory management and being able to make sure you're, if you're sea shipping, okay, or you're great. First you're air shipping, right? But you're paying a lot more in expenses, and then you've got to try and get to the point where you can sea ship. And it's okay, now you're sea shipping, that's great, but you've got to have a lot more inventory in hand to handle the time that it takes for it to float across the sea, or to move across the sea rather. And so it's just, and then if you're on the SaaS side, it's like, okay, you've got competitors, and then there's also technical challenges. And so it's just, there's always challenges in any business you take. And it's just a matter of trying to find, the model or the niche or whatever it might be that really excites you the most. And I think I've just enjoyed having different interests along the way, and finding things to build up and potentially sell off every now and then and do that. But, that's kind of why I guess I've jumped around. But, that's what I'd say for my favorite, and then the one that's most hard.
Yeah. Is there any particular one that's like just uninteresting to you that you just do because it does well? Like it earns well?
That's tough. I mean, I like it all. I mean, I really enjoy just online businesses in general. For me, I'm not really strong at like super operationally heavy things. Like I prefer to, like in the past, like I had the full-time employee I had, he was very good in operations. And so it was nice to kind of offload that. I prefer like coming up with the ideas and like leading stuff forward and getting initial projects off the ground. But that's more of a general kind of thing. And it's not necessarily something that's that's more tied to any one specific model. I think I just go back to what I said earlier, where it's just they all have their pluses and minuses, and it's just kind of a matter of finding what's most interesting to you, and then trying to do it really well. But there's a part of me where I think sometimes that it'd be nice to just sell like literally everything, and then just start completely over with whatever the new idea could be. If I found the idea that I felt I was super excited about, and I tested it, got some initial traction, and I was like, this could be the one. That's probably what I do. Is I just say, okay, I'm going to sell everything, and then just take the cash off the table, and then that way I can just reinvest it into this new idea. I haven't found that quite yet. I've had plenty of like smaller side ideas where it's like, okay, I think this could be like maybe $5K a month or $10K a month or something, but nothing that's like, okay, this will be a huge business, and I'm going to do that right now. I've got like a couple ideas that might be there, and I've been thinking about them for a while, but yeah.
How much exposure do your businesses have to, like, say, Google and Amazon, or the two big ones that I deal with a lot?
I mean, that's a challenge, right? Is that there's always like a platform risk, and whether you acknowledge as an entrepreneur or not, it always exists there, right? So
good advice. That's a gold nugget.
Yeah, I mean, people, I've seen plenty of people like, oh, cool, I'm making, $30K a month or something from these content websites, and it's great. I'm going to go buy this cool car or whatever. And then it's like Google doesn't update, and all of a sudden you're just like completely smashed. So
the new car is going to be a 2009 Honda Civic. It's going to be.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think that there's always a risk with these online businesses. That's why, I like to shift like cash flow from these types of businesses into other assets. So like for me, I like to primarily invest in the stock market, and that's most of what I do. But the other thing I've been looking at more as well is just doing more cash flowing stuff that's offline as well. So I think getting your cash flow to a certain point, and then after that, just focusing on trying to find like bigger opportunities that can give you much bigger rewards if you can do them. So.
Talking about non-offline cash flow, what do you mean? Like real estate?
Yeah, like real estate or other types of cash flowing things, whether it's like a REIT through the stock market or something, or similar type of cash flowing asset. Because it's the equation's it's simple in practice, but it's hard to execute on it, or the theory rather is simple. If you can cover your cash flow needs for your expenses, and you obviously have some control over that, there's certain things you've got a base floor, then really once you've got those covered with your businesses, then anything else above that, you can reinvest or do other things. And so if you can get to the point where you've got, your online side of things, it's making you, great cash flow, but you've got higher risk there because you've got these platforms that they can potentially make rule changes that can disrupt your business. But then you've got the offline side where you've got, real estate that's providing you cash flow that covers your bills. Then, you're really in a pretty strong spot to be able to just kind of take on whatever new challenges you want to. So.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Gotcha. Yeah. Have you tried trading options on the stock market?
Oh yeah, definitely. I've done options and stocks, primarily do like buy and hold. Biggest win for sure would be Tesla. Had been buying Tesla stock.
Then you've killed it.
Yeah, every month, pretty much since 2016, I was buying Tesla stock.
Oh man!
And so that's been nice with that. And
they've had a huge run up, right? Like enormous.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I see the cost basis in one of my accounts because I buy shares in the retirement account, and then also in the other one, it's like, I don't know, like $50 or $60 a share because I was buying it so early. And they're like at 400 something now.
And that's after a split. Yeah. It was like 2K, 2,500 or something ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. When they split, they reduce your cost basis in your account, so it looks lower than what you actually bought it at. I didn't buy it at that time, but yeah, I actually went and test rode in a Tesla Roadster back in 2010. I emailed them. This is back when they only had 3 stores in the country. And I was like, I can't afford a Tesla Roadster, but I would like to ride in one. I know you do test drives for people that can buy the car, but can I be a test rider? And if you're not busy. And he's like, yeah, we come on down. We'll do it. And so I went down there and I was like, man, this thing is amazing. I can't believe like the acceleration and just like the feel of the car. I love to say that at that time, I just invested everything and continued to invest everything in 2010. And to Tesla, I didn't do that. It wasn't until 2016 that I actually was, making enough money to start doing that. But yeah.
So you've done well.
Yeah, it's been nice.
Good for you. Yeah, the reason I mentioned options when we were talking about like cash flowing non-offline assets is I sell covered calls on the S&P 500's index, tickers SPY.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think, so my goal is 0.5% return per week, which doesn't sound that sexy until you realize like I have a pretty consistent win ratio, and it adds up to an additional 26% gain per year. That's assuming that the stock market's not like I lose if the stock market moves too fast in either direction. But I leave myself a pretty good gap. Like it can go up or down several percent, and it's always lowering my cost basis as well. So now after doing it a while, like my cost basis is, it's not $50 a share on a $400 share asset, but it's a little bit lower. So that's interesting. Any other like offline cash flow stuff you're doing?
Yeah, I do covered calls as well. I've done just a lot of stuff along those lines. I've been trying to learn more, just frankly, because it is interesting. It's like you get to a certain point where if you can just manage the money you have, then you can potentially make far more money than you can make just like running your businesses that in a specific year, right? Like if I look at the last 12 months, like Tesla gains alone will probably trump anything I can make with just running businesses, right? So it's kind of like if you can transition to that point, then that's great. But yeah, I'd say that's the main kind of stuff is just investing in stocks and doing things like that. Been really fascinated by just like other types of interesting methods to make money. Nothing that I've really dove into and can say, hey, this is awesome. But I've been looking at other types of areas, just other types of whether it's real estate or like vending machines, just kind of like random stuff that's not necessarily tied. So it's kind of like I'm in the spot where I've been doing this 10 years now, working from home, and I wouldn't mind getting out of the house maybe on occasion. So that's kind of why I'm looking at other stuff. So yeah.
I've always been interested in opening up. So like I in my mind I call it like a minimalist gym. So I've heard before that regular gyms need 10 times the amount of members that they're able to hold just to break even, which is ridiculous. So like if you can hold 100 people, you need 1,000 memberships. It's crazy. So I've always been interested in, say, like a CrossFit gym. Minimal equipment. It's usually just in like some big honking warehouse. Like, so your overhead is as low as possible, and you can charge people like $200 a month, or like a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym, like zero equipment costs, and then those memberships are ridiculous. So I've always been interested in something like that, like just as maybe that'll be my side gig when I'm rich and famous one day, when I'm rich enough to drive a Tesla.
They're nice cars, I will say. Buy your Tesla. help pump that stock. No, and I'm just mainly joking, but I bought a Model 3 back in 2018, and I really enjoyed the car. It's like I just feels kind of ridiculous to buy Model S or Model X when I work from home and don't really drive that far. But I've been following the company for so long, I really wanted to buy one, and the cost of ownership on the car is really low. It's staggering. Like I've taken it in once to get like a door handle fixed, and then there's not really any oil or anything you got to deal with. It's fantastic. Love the car.
Everyone go buy Teslas, fund Chris's retirement.
Yeah, help that out. I mean, it's just, that's the other thing is that, I don't know, it's kind of going completely random. Maybe that's what you prefer with the conversations, but that's like the one thing that's been so clear to me for the last like 5 years since I started investing in Tesla, was that there's no way that the electric vehicles don't surpass and take over internal combustion engine vehicles. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. and it's likely that Tesla will be continue to be at the front of that kind of path. It's very interesting watching this, where all the incumbent players are not reacting to it, or they're reacting far too slowly, and then seeing all these new electric startups that are trying to go about. So I wouldn't be surprised to see like a lot of these household names that have been around for like 100 years with internal combustion engine vehicles, just die off, and then we might have some new startups that take their place, or maybe they try and buy a startup and just rebrand or something. But I don't know. It's really interesting to watch the trend play out. So
it does seem like a lot of the sort of like, call them incumbent companies, so like the Fords and Toyotas of the world, have been a little slow to adapt, which I think as entrepreneurs is understandable. Like, it is not an easy thing to pivot, especially when what you've been doing has been working for going on 100 years. So I get that. Kind of bring the conversation back in. So if someone is looking to pivot in their business, say you were talking to the CEO of Ford, and he's like, hey, I need to get in on something because this petroleum thing is dying. What advice do you give as far as like recognizing pivot opportunities and then moving that way?
That's
tough. You weren't prepared for that question, so sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I actually prefer to just not have any preparation. I just kind of go with the flow. I'd say with Ford, it's interesting because they have this inferior drivetrain with the internal combustion engine, where they've already it's 100 years of research and development into this, and you can really only improve it that much more. That's why every year it's just been like a small incremental thing, like, oh, you've added Apple CarPlay to this year's model, right, or some other type of small minor update.
Thanks.
And so I think it's I would say it almost seems like they would need to like start another team that works inside Ford, but that's separate from everyone else and able to make their own decisions and have them lead like the electric vehicle strategy. In their case, they have the Mustang Mach-E, and that's not out quite yet. But I'm interested to see what that looks like. But yeah, I mean, you just gotta. It's tough because they've got they can't really tell people that this is the way that the direction is going, because once this happens, then everyone that has the internal combustion engine vehicles, I mean, especially if you buy a new one, it's like the resale price is going to plummet, because why are you going to want to buy a gas car when you can buy a less expensive, that's easier to operate, and everything else, all the other environmental benefits of an electric vehicle. So I don't know. It's a tough spot. I don't envy those people. I mean, I think I read somewhere that like Elon is the longest running automotive CEO. I think to the extent where I think his tenure combined just was over the rest of all the other auto CEOs combined, because they've had so much turnover. I think I could be wrong on that though, but he is like a long running auto CEO. But I don't know. It's a very interesting thing. I told a friend of mine about 5 years ago, I was building out an Elon portfolio, and he's like, "What's that?" And I was like, "It's just I'm just investing in the companies that Elon is working on." And at the time, it was like SolarCity and Tesla. So I was just doing those, and then Tesla bought SolarCity, and so those shares converted. But it has proven to be a good strategy, is finding those people that are doing things. I don't know. I mean, I'm going like super random.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's tough with when you're in a spot where you've got like an inferior product that you've got to be able to release something that's better without trying to kill off the thing that provides you the cash flow. So it's a challenge. I don't think everyone will make it. That's for sure.
So what steps do you take, say, in sales background? Because it sounds to me like this is your kind of big dog product business. What steps are you and the team taking to make sure that you're first providing the best product, and that you're always kind of guarding against that called like feature creep, slowly adding features that no one cares about, essentially keeping yourself relevant and pivoting? Yeah,
I mean, I think it's tough. You have to decide. In every business is different. I think in the case of SalesBacker, we've have a pretty mature product, and early on we were trying to decide if we should focus on building out a bunch of different tools and kind of expanding out in different areas. And ultimately we just decided to focus in on like the one key area and do it really well. And then that way it's just a service that everyone that sells on Amazon should be using if they want to make sure they get, more product reviews, and those reviews are going to help drive the sales and rankings and everything else. So it's still a clear thing that people need. And so it just depends, right? Some SaaS businesses, they have the narrow focus and they really try and solve one problem and do that well. And then that way there's not really a huge concern about, oh, you don't offer this feature or that feature, because usually it's just, here's the kind of core problem that's being solved. And so in that case, it's easier to not have to deal with as much of feature development and keeping on top of those things. It's more of just, does it fit and focus on this one key area? Versus if you do the Swiss Army knife approach, where you've got to, expand out in a bunch of different areas, and then there's all sorts of things you can do. So I think it just really depends on your SaaS strategy. So whether you're trying to focus in on, just the one kind of niche, or if you want to focus on a bunch of other things as well. And so for us, at least, we focus on just kind of that one niche. I think if I do another SaaS business, I've got one really fun e-commerce idea, and I'm trying to decide if I'm going to do it or not. If I do it, I don't know, we'll see. But I think if I do another SaaS business, I think I'll probably go for the Swiss Army knife approach, just so that you have I don't know, it's tough. It's always a trade-off, right? Because if you go for the narrow focus, then you can have a smaller team and you can have more profits for yourself in some ways. If you go for the Swiss Army knife, then you're constantly always, reinvesting a ton into development and trying to expand. And then you're encroaching into other areas of competitors and needing to market in new ways. So, I think it just depends on your SaaS strategy that you have for your business.
I have an inherent fear of the Swiss Army knife type businesses. So BrandBuilders and SiteBuddy, my two interests, are both pretty niche. So BrandBuilders is broader, in the sense that we help affiliates and we help e-commerce people, and that's it. We don't do anything else. And then we have a few services we offer, but that's it. And that's about as broad as I want to go, because my fear when going broader as opposed to nicher is that it's easy for someone to build a better product than you if they have the exact same resources and they go niche. So an example, say, you're in the SaaS business and you have however many people on your development team, doesn't really matter. And then you go Swiss Army knife, and then say you have 3 different areas and one developer on each of those, as opposed to a competitor who goes hyper niche and he or she can put 3 developers on one thing and really over time create a better product. And then all you need, say you have 3 categories in your Swiss Army knife, all you need are 3 competitors who have equal resources to you, who are more niche than you, to beat you in all 3 areas. And then it's oh, well, geez, this offer is less compelling if someone is interested in one of those areas. And there are a few exceptions to that. But I have a little bit of a fear of going Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, it really depends. I think that it really depends on what the market is that you're going after and what problems you're trying to solve. And I guess it always comes back to, what your goals are and what you're trying to do with the business. Something like SiteBuddy, which I'm somewhat familiar with because I saw it, out there. It makes sense to just kind of keep it narrowly focused on that one specific core problem, because, what other problems are Amazon affiliates going to have? There's only maybe a handful of other things you could potentially do before it's okay, well, what's this tool even going to do? Right. And so in some ways it's better to focus in, and then, you're going to be capped at least somewhat in terms of what the total market can be. But even if the cap is, at a certain level, it can still be a fantastic business for you. And, you don't have to have something that can do everything for all people.
That's what I'm hoping.
You can save, you can save something for another idea, later on down the line, perhaps.
Gotcha. Well, cool, man. So we've talked a little bit about this already, but what are your future plans? So you talked about taking profits from online business, and then are you investing those in offline businesses, or what are you doing?
Yeah. So I have a stake in former employees' e-commerce brands, and I make some money from that. I've primarily invest in the stock market, and so that's another kind of main thing. I've never really done a lot in real estate other than my own primary residence. I have a friend of mine that is on a really popular podcast, Bigger Pockets. Brandon Turner. He was always telling me like, dude, you got to do real estate as well. And I'm like, look, I'm doing just fine with the online stuff. Yeah. And then I have to deal with people like complaining about their toilet not working or something.
Yeah.
And obviously you could say, go hire a property management company, but I just never kind of went down that path of doing that. But it is interesting, right? Because I kind of go back to what I said before, where if you can have like a nice, either a nice cash flow stream from offline stuff that's lower risk, combined with, being able to work on something online that has potential for, bigger rewards, but also has higher risk, then it's kind of a nice combo. For me, it's more of just like building up a large, like financial net from like, of resources from just kind of investing over the years. But like, Tesla doesn't pay a dividend. Probably if they announced they were going to start paying one, I probably would have to sell the stock because it would mean that they didn't think they could grow anymore. But, so I'm not, it's not really from those types of platforms that I'm doing cash flow, but, I've looked at, other types of paths as well. I just haven't really dove into anything that I was focused on trying out.
And then in your future plans, are you going to be acquiring more businesses, starting more businesses?
Yeah. I mean, I spent a while looking to, I was going to use the SBA program to buy something, and I actually got fairly far along. It was a deal I was going to buy. It was, I think it was like $4.5 million, and it was going to require a pretty decent sized down payment. And then I would still have like a 7-figure type, debt service to handle as well. I ultimately decided not to buy the deal because I just wasn't, I felt like there was a good opportunity to improve it, but I wasn't very passionate about the business itself. And over the years, I've done plenty of stuff that was just like, starting a website in a specific topic because I knew it could make money. And my interest now has always kind of shifted this more towards trying to find something that I'm really interested in. And so if I found like a perfect business I could buy, then I would probably do that. But for now, it's just kind of continuing to run the stuff that I have, continuing to reinvest into stocks and other types of things like that. And that's kind of the main thing. That's the main thing for me right now.
Would you ever consider investing in a business that you weren't interested in?
No, I mean, I think I'd have to know like the product and know what it is that. I mean, it's just. Like for me, it's much easier to invest, and this is the same for stock market or even for, smaller businesses, but I have to like know and understand the business really well. Like late last year when this Tesla stock was below $200 a share. And so I was below some of my cost basis. I had some shares I bought below 200, but I was like, man, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't understand why, there's all these risks about scaling the Model 3 production, and those have mostly been solved. And so, and the car is great. I know the car is great because I've had it and they continue doing all these updates and stuff. And then sure enough, of course, it ends up doing really well. And now we have this huge story of the stock doing so exceptionally well. But it takes that understanding and like that conviction in something to be able to like hold on. And so I wouldn't want to invest in something that I'm not interested in, don't have like a passion for, that I don't really feel that much, because then I feel like you have, either it's easier to pull the ripcord and get out, or, you just don't have any value to add. If it's a smaller investment in like the investment I have in the e-commerce brand, I'm able to directly advise him on like things I would recommend, so I can help have some impact on the success. I'll say it's mainly him, of course, that's built it and done well. But yeah, I would never. So maybe you're asking us a short question for a quick answer, I went for a long one, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, I would never do that. I think it's just you gotta have some sort of an interest, or be able to provide some value in some way, or it just doesn't make sense to do it, in my opinion.
Would you say that you have to be passionate about it?
I think that definitely helps. Like for me, like reading about Tesla and stuff like that was like some of a hobby and more like in an interest as well. The same thing can be said for any of the other stuff that I've invested in. Is like, it's interesting, and so I've wanted to, to spend time and focus on it. It's just hard to get into that path to go down that path where if you're not interested in it or you're not passionate about it, you can do well. I just don't think it really works.
Yeah. Well said. And then what's your end goal? Is there a point when you look at your online business and you say, I'm done, I'm cashing it all out, living on a beach in Mexico? Travel Brazil with me. I mean, I'm in Brazil right now.
Yeah, that's nice. I'll say that everyone I've met that, and some of these people have done very well. Like the vast majority of them that have built, say, like 8-9 figure type businesses or wealth. Like I don't know any of them that are just like retired, retired forever. Most of the time it's like, okay, I've taken some time off after I sold the business or, whatever. And now it's like, okay, now I'm going to get back into doing something, because the people that are able to build that kind of wealth and build that type of a business, there's just something that's driving them to want to keep doing new challenges, even if it's just for the personal satisfaction of starting a new business and the challenge of kind of solving the problems and helping customers. Like that's something that helps drive them. And that's like the common trait I've known with meeting people. I would say I feel somewhat similar in that I don't think I'd ever just stop. But there is like maybe a scenario where I find something that just like the one thing that I've searched for, like the one business that's like, hey, this is like the one thing I want to do. And then at that point, maybe I would stop everything else I was doing to do it. Haven't found it quite yet, but yeah, I mean, for now it's just kind of, continuing to do a lot of the same stuff, just take chips off the table and find ways that I can get quick wins and find things that I know I can be successful with, and just continuing to stack those up. Compounding, like gains from previous wins can really help compound. And it's just trying to build that as much as possible is really helpful. So yeah.
So not retiring, do you ever see yourself scaling back in hours?
Yeah, I can.
How many hours are you working a week right now? You've got several projects.
I'd say like 40, 50,
okay,
maybe 60 sometimes. It depends. I think that the thing is, especially if you're in like a really competitive space, you either have to know that you're okay with people coming in and taking market share from you, or you just have to like work harder than them in some ways. And so you have to kind of make that decision. So if I were ever to scale back, it'd be maybe after I reached a specific net worth target or cash flow target or something like that. Maybe I'd say, okay, let me just, and that'd only be if I wasn't interested in what I was doing, right? It's like, as long as I'm interested in it and it's fun, it's challenging, then I'll continue to do it. But if I get to the point where it's like, I don't really like what I'm doing and I'm not as interested in it, then I just sell or do something and just stop doing it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. It is surprising how many people have like hit that like say income or net worth target, and they're like, no, I'm not done. Like I'm still going. It's like a video game. Like they're just interested in getting more gold. I justify it.
I'll definitely say, like from my experience, that you say like if you think about like some number, it's like, oh, I would love to hit that. But then once you hit that number, there's really no parade or anything like that. There's it's kind of a really extreme example, but there's nothing really changes, right? You're still going to have I guess in some sense you're going to have maybe, the money helps you with other problems, but there's still other problems you have and other things you want to try and do. But yeah, I think it's just more about trying to enjoy what you're doing. And yeah.
I will say hitting the financial goal is a lot less satisfying than I thought it would be. So I'm by no means wealthy, right? Like my net worth is not eclipsing anyone's in the audience here, but I do fine. But I had a financial goal that I hit recently, and it was almost like lonely. Like how many, like, can you tell your friends who I'm still like early 20s. So like some of my friends are not many years out of college. Like they still got huge student loan debts, for sure a negative net worth. Now, like, not only is my net worth greater than yours, it is infinitely times greater than yours because it's not negative.
Yeah.
So and then like it's almost lonely. Like, yeah, just hit the number and can't tell more than 3 people.
Well, that's what I'll say is that I was shaking my head when you said, "Can you tell your friends?" And it's like, no, you can't really, because you can't really relate as well. if the disparity grows too large. And as I'm saying this, it's making it sound like I'm super wealthy. I'm not super wealthy. I've done fine. That's what I'll say. But, it's just the challenges you might be facing, or if they're financial, you just can't relate in that way. And so it's better to either just meet more people that can better relate and that you can talk to about those challenges. Like I have a good friend of mine that we're kind of in a similar spot. And so we can talk on a regular basis about things that we're doing, moves we're making. And it's easier that way. But if you are much different, it's just finances and things like that can cause friction with relationships. If someone knows that you have a lot more money than them or something, or you're talking about things, it's just, I've seen it. It's better not to share.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. So, oh well, that's it for end goals for us then, I guess.
Yeah.
Make money and keep working and don't tell anyone.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of make new friends, and the friends you have, you just have different things to talk about with them. Mm-hmm. You have your entrepreneur friends that you can talk about business and money and things like that, and then your friends that aren't kind of on that path, you don't have to have those conversations with unless you want to. But yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, I think a lot of entrepreneurs have trouble. A lot of successful entrepreneurs have trouble building relationships with people who are not entrepreneurial. Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. I mean, I think that for now it's like, I mentioned before, I've been working from home for like 10 years. So most of the people that I talk to are, pre-COVID, or like people I would go and meet at events and things like that. And I would make friends that way. And then the friends I have now would be just people that were from like before I started doing entrepreneurial stuff. And I still kind of continue to talk to them, but I'd say it's just like anything, right? You make friends with people that have related, similar interests. And so it's challenging, if you aren't kind of on that same path, to be able to relate well to people.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of successful entrepreneurs, it's difficult to put into words, but I think the vast majority of successful entrepreneurs who I've met can suffer well. Like, we know how to, what's the expression, like, put our feet to the fire, like feet to the grindstone or something like that? I don't remember. It's like, we know how to live through sucky. Like, we can get up, if we have to, we can get up at 3 a.m. and work on our business. And that's not ideal, but we can go days and we can suffer and we can live off of ramen noodles and broken friendships, because we have this drive within us for something different, I don't know, better or worse, I don't know. And that's been my challenge with, and I have plenty of non-entrepreneurial friends, but it can be difficult to find common ground with them sometimes, because it's like, well, you're complaining about this thing, like, hey, you have no idea what it is to suffer. You have no idea, and that's a little bit arrogance. Like, that's not 100% true. Like, everyone knows what it is to suffer. But I think I think that element of entrepreneurial suckiness can make it difficult for us to relate to people sometimes.
Yeah, I think it just comes back to, making sure it's hard if you don't have similar challenges, similar interests, to be able to relate to someone. It's more challenging, I'd say, for sure.
Yeah. Well, glad we're friends now, Chris. It's been a joy. Some rapid fire questions to close this out here. So what is one tool that you just cannot live without?
I'd say Zoom. Right now it's Zoom.
Yeah.
It's just lots. I know you said before we started this call, you'd said that, you use this new platform to help record because the quality is much better, but I'm still using Zoom for a lot of things, just calls with people and still trying to stay connected in the COVID times. So yeah, I'd say Zoom for now. Yeah,
I won't lie that it's super useful. Just don't record your podcast on it. No, it's really video that suffers. So what happens is, I think if a video is longer than like 30 minutes, Zoom cuts down the quality to either, I can't remember if it's 360 or 720 pixels. But either way, it's like grainy and the lighting's weird. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, so it's like it was filmed in the 90s with a potato. What's something that you're reading or consuming right now that you recommend to people?
That's a tough one. Right now, I'm listening to it's too early, I guess, but it's just the one that's on top of my head. I'm listening to an audiobook called Why We Sleep, just all about, the science behind why we sleep. And it's just kind of pretty fascinating. I think that been so used to like doing like the burn the candle at both ends type of thing, and just trying to learn more of the science behind, how important it is to get proper sleep, and then use that as motivation to make better decisions. Cause it's easier for me to be like, oh, I'm just going to stay up late and, do whatever. Cause I can just kind of have more freedom about what I want to do the next day anyways.
Entrepreneurial suck, baby.
So that's one that I don't know. It's early enough to where I don't know if I can recommend it, but the premise is interesting enough to me to want to listen to it.
I did watch the author of that on Joe Rogan, and it was horrifying to me. Someone who has minor insomnia. It's like, oh my goodness. Like, is this why every male on my father's side has insomnia and dies of dementia? It's like, oh my goodness. Like, that's terrifying. So I'm
not to that part of the book yet. That's going to be concerning when I get there.
He talks about the link between sleep and these like he used a quote in the interview that wakefulness is minor brain damage, like low grade brain damage. And when we sleep, we kind of fix that. And when we don't sleep, then it doesn't get repaired. And it leads to a degradation of the cells in the brain. Another book I loved, if you're into this kind of thing, is called Lifespan by David Sinclair. I'll send it to you after the podcast. Dude, it's amazing.
Yeah. I'll check it out.
Yeah, really good. And then what is the most successful strategy that you've done this year?
Most successful?
If you say buy Tesla stock, we're done.
Most successful strategy? I'd say that I don't know if it's necessarily this year, but in the last 12 months, I've been just trying to I bought a handful of content sites and really just kind of went for like quick wins on them, right? So, okay, they're under monetized, and then just finding stuff that I knew like from day one I could improve. So just finding stuff that I can get day one improvements is a strategy that I've been executing on and doing pretty well with the last kind of 12 months or so. Any
of those day one improvements that you look out for that you can say, or are those trade secrets?
Mainly just like if they're using display advertising, then find like a better way to make more money from that. So whether it's a different network or different placements, things like that. Oftentimes if you talk to people that have had a site for a long period of time, then they get to a certain area and they don't really change how it's being monetized, and they don't look at it that often. And then it just kind of, there's more room there. So something like that, I'd say.
Well said. And then how have you cut expenses this year?
That's a tough one. I feel like for me with kids and everything, it's just more of like growing expenses every year.
I guess you can't get rid of a kid. So
yeah. I think that the biggest expense cutting, I guess for me, was like my gym membership being cut because of COVID. And I contacted them recently, and I don't even like, they might just be out of business, which is sad, because that's the other thing, is the decimation that we've seen to people that aren't doing online businesses during this time period. But yeah, I don't know if there's any other things that I've really cut bills wise. I mean, I did. I mean, for me, it's just, I try and do my best to avoid the lifestyle inflation. But it's been hard because, if you want to do stuff and buy things, and it's hard not to do that, and to kind of still maintain that same attitude from earlier on in life where you're just starting out and trying to reinvest and keep expenses low. But yeah, I guess I'll say that back when I was buying Tesla stock, any dollar that I was spending on something else now would be worth like $10 more. So that's another motivation, not to say that it'll be the case for whatever investment you put it into, but if you're investing in the long run, there's usually going to be compounding gains, and any money you spend that isn't going to be invested, whether it's through the stock market or real estate or some other channel, is that much less that you're going to get from compound gains over the long time.
Yeah. And then I think this question's right in your ball field, since you like Elon, but what's a great business that you think doesn't exist today?
Great business that doesn't exist today? Well, I mean, I'll say that, there's a few, sorry, you said a great business that doesn't exist today?
That you think doesn't exist today.
That's tough. I don't even know if I know that. I mean, with Elon, I think it's just like, yeah, really anything that's kind of off the wall. I will say I saw that Neuralink presentation, and it's I don't know if I'll put one of those in my brain or not, but I'll be interested to see. I won't be on the first on the list, but it seems interesting.
Yeah, I won't be the first, but
yeah, I don't know if I
have.
have. Yeah, if there's a business that doesn't exist today that I'd like to have exist, then I would just go do it. And I don't know what that is yet.
Spoken like a true entrepreneur. Chris, thanks so much for being on the podcast. Any final words of advice for watchers and listeners?
No, I think I would just say apologize in advance for my rambling. I think with a longer conversation like this, it's easier for me to stray and talk about my true love, Tesla and Elon, for too much of the conversation. I think it's just, the advice is going to be different for anyone, but for me, what's worked well is just trying to find ways to, be successful with one thing and then continue to roll those successes into other ones. And then always be making sure you can take chips off the table into other things in case the business blows up. Because I've had stuff that has fallen apart, it's making, great money one day. And then the next day it's like a Google update happens and all of a sudden you're wiped out. And so it's just always important to be able to, take chips off the table, find other ways to gather cash flow streams or just build other wealth up. So that's what I'd say, I guess.
Well said. Awesome. Chris, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.